What happens when a former royal walks into what he thinks is a friendly interview, only to discover the host has no intention of playing by the rules he's grown accustomed to? Tonight, we're diving deep into the explosive confrontation that had everyone talking, where Prince Harry discovered that some stages don't come with red carpets, and some hosts refuse to bow. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about royal protocols in today's media landscape. The Dorian Television Awards had always prided themselves on being different. Unlike the glitzy ceremonies that dominated primetime television, this annual event celebrated authentic storytelling, genuine journalism, and hosts who weren't afraid to ask the tough questions. When they announced that Prince Harry would be their headline guest for a special interview segment, the entertainment world took notice. Marcus Dorian, the show's creator and tonight's host, sat across from his guest in the intimate studio setting. The cameras were rolling, the audience was captivated, and what started as a routine celebrity interview was about to become something much more intense. "So, Harry," Marcus began, his tone casual but direct, "let's talk about your recent documentary project and how it reflects your journey as a private citizen." Harry shifted slightly in his chair, a small smile playing at his lips. "Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, but I think there might be some confusion about the proper way to address me during this interview." Marcus raised an eyebrow, genuinely curious. "Oh, how's that?" "It's His Royal Highness, Prince Harry, or Your Royal Highness if you prefer the formal approach," Harry said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of polite correction that had been refined through years of royal protocol. The studio fell silent for a moment. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying his guest with the kind of look that experienced journalists give when they sense a story developing right in front of them. "I see," Marcus said slowly. "And why would I use those titles?" Harry's smile became slightly strained. "Because, well, that's who I am. Those are my proper titles, and it's traditional protocol to use them during formal interviews." "Traditional protocol," Marcus repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "Harry, help me understand something. You stepped back from your royal duties, moved to California, signed deals with Netflix and Spotify, wrote a best-selling memoir criticizing the royal family, and have spent the last few years building a brand around being independent from the monarchy. But you still want to be addressed by royal titles that come from that very institution?" The question hit like a lightning bolt. Harry's posture straightened, and for the first time since the interview began, his media-trained composure showed the tiniest crack. That's not quite accurate," Harry stammered. "I mean, yes. We've chosen to step back from official duties. But the titles themselves they're part of who I am. They're not something you just discard." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "I understand they're part of your identity. But here at the Dorian Awards, we've always believed in treating our guests as the people they are today, not the positions they once held or the families they were born into. You're here tonight as Harry Mountbatten Windsor, documentary filmmaker, author, and entrepreneur. Isn't that more authentic to who you've chosen to become?" The cameras captured every micro-expression as Harry processed this response. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and his hands, which had been resting casually on the chair arms, clenched slightly. "I think you're misunderstanding the situation," Harry said, his voice taking on a cooler edge. "These aren't positions I once held. I am a prince of the United Kingdom. That doesn't change based on where I live or what projects I choose to pursue." "But doesn't it, though?" Marcus pressed gently. "I mean, you've been very vocal about wanting to live life on your own terms, free from the constraints and expectations of royal life. You've talked about the freedom that comes with making your own choices. Doesn't insisting on royal protocols kind of contradict that message?" Harry was quiet for several seconds, and viewers could practically see the internal struggle playing out across his features. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled, but carried an unmistakable undercurrent of frustration. "Marcus, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here about what stepping back from duties means versus what my actual title and status are. I didn't renounce my place in the line of succession. I didn't give up my titles. I simply chose to serve in a different capacity. And I respect that choice completely," Marcus replied smoothly. "But here's what I'm struggling with, Harry. You've built your entire post-royal brand around authenticity, around being real, around connecting with ordinary people on a human level. When you insist that I call you Your Royal Highness, doesn't that create a barrier between you and the very audience you're trying to reach? The question struck home in a way that was visible to everyone watching. Harry's carefully maintained smile faltered completely, replaced by something harder, more defensive. I don't think asking for basic respect and proper protocol creates barriers, he said, his voice rising slightly. I think it shows respect for institutions and traditions that have meaning. Institutions and traditions that you've spent considerable time criticizing, Marcus pointed out, his tone still conversational but unrelenting. In your book, in interviews, in your documentary work, you've been quite open about the problems with those very institutions. So why are you so attached to the titles they bestow? Harry's face flushed visibly, the carefully maintained composure that had carried him through hundreds of interviews finally beginning to crack under Marcus's relentless logic. That's completely different, Harry snapped, leaning forward in his chair. Criticizing problems within an institution doesn't mean rejecting everything about it. I can acknowledge flaws while still respecting my heritage and position. Can you, though? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you want to have it both ways. You want the freedom to criticize, to live independently, to make your own money and your own choices. But you also want the respect and deference that comes with royal titles. Doesn't that seem a bit contradictory? No, it doesn't, Harry said firmly. But his voice betrayed a slight tremor of uncertainty. Look, Marcus. I understand you might not be familiar with how these things work. But there's a difference between stepping back from official duties and abandoning who you are fundamentally. The condescension in that statement hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly, and a knowing smile played at the corners of his mouth. Oh, I'm quite familiar with how these things work, Harry, Marcus said, emphasizing the name deliberately. I've interviewed heads of state, former presidents, Nobel laureates, and yes, even royalty. What I've learned is that the most compelling conversations happen when people are willing to be vulnerable and real, rather than hiding behind titles and protocol. Harry's hands were now gripping the arms of his chair. I'm not hiding behind anything. I'm simply asking for the basic courtesy that any other member of the royal family would receive. But you're not any other member of the royal family, are you? Marcus countered smoothly. You've made a point of distinguishing yourself from them. You've talked about being the spare, about feeling trapped, about wanting to break free from those constraints. So why are you so desperate to cling to the very symbols of the system you've rejected? I haven't rejected the system, Harry protested, his voice getting louder. I've tried to reform it, to modernize it, to make it more relevant and authentic. By moving to California and signing entertainment deals, Marcus asked, his tone still conversational, but with a sharp edge. By writing tell-all books and giving interviews that embarrass your family? That's your idea of reform? Harry stood up abruptly, pacing behind his chair. The studio audience could feel the tension ratcheting up with each exchange. You're twisting everything, Harry said, pointing an accusatory finger at Marcus. You're taking things out of context and trying to create some kind of gotcha moment for your show. Marcus remained seated, calm and composed. I'm not twisting anything, Harry. I'm simply asking you to reconcile your actions with your demands. You've spent years telling the world that you want to be treated like a normal person, that you value authenticity above all else. But the moment someone actually treats you like a normal person, you get upset and demand special treatment. Asking to be addressed properly is not demanding special treatment, Harry shot back, his voice now clearly strained. It's basic respect. For who, though? Marcus pressed. Respect for Harry the person, or respect for Prince Harry the title? Because I've been showing plenty of respect for Harry the person this entire conversation. I've been engaging with your ideas, asking thoughtful questions about your work and your choices. The only thing I haven't done is bow and scrape because of an accident of birth. The phrase accident of birth hit Harry like a physical blow. His face went from flush to pale in seconds. An accident of birth? He repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Is that what you think this is? Isn't it? Marcus asked simply. You didn't earn your title through merit or achievement. You were born into it. And now you're asking me to defer to something you had no role in creating." Harry was silent for a long moment, standing behind his chair, visibly struggling to regain his composure. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight with barely contained anger. "You have no idea what it means to carry this responsibility, this legacy. You have no idea what it's like to have every decision you make scrutinized, every word you speak analyzed, every relationship you have dissected by the media and the public." "You're absolutely right," Marcus agreed. "I don't know what that's like, but I do know what it's like to work for everything I have, to build my career from nothing, to earn respect through my actions, rather than expecting it because of my bloodline." The studio was dead silent. Harry stared at Marcus for several seconds, his breathing visible, his hands clenched into fists. "Are you seriously comparing your career as a television host to centuries of royal tradition and service?" Harry asked incredulously. "I'm not comparing anything," Marcus replied calmly. "I'm simply pointing out that in this studio, on this stage, we're just two people having a conversation. Your ancestry doesn't make your opinions more valuable than mine, and your title doesn't make you more deserving of respect than anyone else in this room." Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "I'm talking to Harry Mountbatten Windsor," Marcus said firmly. "A man who's written a book, made some documentaries, and has some interesting perspectives on modern life. That's who I'm talking to. The question is, who do you think you are?" The question hung in the air like a challenge that couldn't be ignored. Harry's face cycled through a range of emotions: confusion, anger, disbelief, and finally something that looked almost like desperation. "Who do I think I am?" Harry repeated slowly, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I think I'm someone who's spent his entire life in service to others. I think I'm someone who's sacrificed personal happiness for duty. I think I'm someone who deserves a basic level of respect and acknowledgement for what I've given up." Marcus leaned forward slightly, his expression softening just a fraction. "And what exactly have you given up, Harry? Because from where most people sit, it looks like you've gained quite a lot. You've got financial independence. You've got a platform to speak your mind. You've got the freedom to pursue whatever projects interest you. What exactly are you mourning the loss of?" "My family," Harry said, and for the first time his voice cracked with genuine emotion. "My relationships, my sense of belonging, my connection to something bigger than myself. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be cut off from everything you've ever known?" "But you weren't cut off," Marcus pointed out gently. "You chose to leave. You made that decision. And I'm not judging that choice. By the way, maybe it was the right decision for you and your family, but you can't have it both ways. You can't choose independence and then demand the deference that comes with dependence." Harry ran his hands through his hair, clearly struggling. "It's not that simple. It's never been that simple. You think I wanted any of this? You think I wanted to be in a position where I had to choose between my family and my sanity? No, I don't think you wanted that," Marcus said sincerely. "But you did make that choice. And having made it, you've built a new life. A successful life by most measures. So why are you still so attached to the symbols of the old one?" Harry was quiet for a long moment, staring at the floor. When he looked up, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Because without those symbols, without that connection, what am I?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "What am I if I'm not Prince Harry? What am I if I'm just another celebrity trying to stay relevant?" The raw vulnerability in that admission seemed to surprise even Harry himself. He immediately tried to backtrack, straightening up and clearing his throat. "I mean, I didn't mean to suggest," he started. But Marcus held up a gentle hand. "Harry, that might be the most honest thing you've said all evening," Marcus said quietly. "And I think it gets to the heart of what we're really talking about here. You're not fighting for respect for some abstract royal tradition. You're fighting for your own sense of identity, your own sense of worth." Harry's jaw clenched. "Don't psychoanalyze me." "I'm not analyzing anything," Marcus replied. "I'm just listening to what you're telling me. You're afraid that without the title, Without the protocol, people won't see you as valuable or important. But Harry, the most compelling thing about you isn't your bloodline. It's your willingness to take risks, to challenge systems, to speak uncomfortable truths. That's not princely behavior, that's human behavior at its best. You don't understand, Harry said, shaking his head. You can't understand. When that title is all you've ever been, when it's been the defining characteristic of your entire existence, giving it up isn't liberation, it's obliteration. But you haven't given it up, Marcus pointed out. That's exactly the problem. You're trying to exist in this liminal space where you want the benefits of both worlds, the freedom of being a private citizen and the respect that comes with royal status. But that's not sustainable, and deep down, I think you know that. Harry's composure finally shattered completely. You know what? This is exactly why I left. This is exactly the kind of disrespect and dismissal that drove me away in the first place. I came here in good faith to have a civilized conversation, and instead I'm being lectured by someone who clearly has an agenda. My only agenda is honesty, Marcus said calmly. And honestly, Harry, I think you're more interesting and more valuable as a person than you are as a prince. But until you believe that about yourself, you're going to keep having conversations like this one. Harry stepped forward, his voice rising to nearly a shout. Don't you dare tell me what I believe about myself. Don't you dare sit there and pretend you know anything about my journey or my struggles. You want to know who I think I am? I think I'm someone who's been through more than you could possibly imagine. And I think I deserve better treatment than this. From who? Marcus asked simply. Better treatment from who, Harry? From me? From the media? From the public? Or from yourself? The question stopped Harry cold. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, clearly struggling to find words. Because here's what I see, Marcus continued. I see someone who's incredibly talented, who has important things to say, who has the platform and resources to make a real difference in the world. But I also see someone who's so caught up in defending a version of himself that no longer exists, that he can't fully embrace who he's becoming. Harry stared at Marcus for several seconds, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse with emotion. This interview is over, he said quietly. This was a mistake. All of this was a mistake. Was it, though? Marcus asked as Harry began to walk toward the edge of the stage. Or was it just the first honest conversation you've had about this in years? Harry stopped walking but didn't turn around. You have no idea what honest conversation costs me. Maybe not, Marcus conceded. But I know what dishonest ones cost everyone else. Harry finally turned back, his face a mixture of anger and something that might have been respect. You're never going to call me your Royal Highness, are you? He asked. No, Harry, Marcus said with a slight smile. I'm not. But I will call you brave, talented, and worth listening to. Isn't that better? For just a moment, Harry's defensive mask slipped entirely, and something like relief flickered across his features. Then the walls went back up, and he straightened his jacket with as much dignity as he could muster. Goodbye, Marcus, he said simply, and walked off the stage. As the studio lights dimmed and the audience sat in stunned silence, Marcus looked directly into the camera. And that, folks, is what happens when protocol meets authenticity. So what do you think? Was Marcus right to refuse using the royal titles? Or should he have shown traditional respect, regardless of the circumstances? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that dive deep into the moments when public figures show us who they really are.